Thank you, Glenn. My name is Reggie White. I'm an alcoholic, and thank you for allowing me to come out and share my experience, strength, and hope today. I want to congratulate Jasmine and Jeannie. Jasmine for the 94 days and Jeannie for the 14 years. Um, those are all huge. Those are huge. I was sitting here, and for some reason, I start reflecting the day. I mean, right now, a little bit. I was thinking of who I was before I came here to alcohol. I was thinking of who I was before I even drank alcohol. I came up, I have five brothers, and I grew up in a poor family in Watts, which is a part of Los Angeles, right? My dad was an alcoholic. What didn't really rise to the level of alcoholic. He was a wino. My dad drank a lot of Ripple. Wasn't a mean drunk, tough drunk, abusive drunk. He was a guy who just couldn't make it home with the paycheck. He would get paid on Friday, make it home by Sunday or Monday, wouldn't have any money. And my mom was so upset when he'd make it home. She'd yell at him. He might yell back or something at her. And I was thinking he's weak. I was thinking I hate him. I was thinking I hate alcohol. I hate people who drink. And I was thinking I never, ever want to drink alcohol. And I hated people who did drink alcohol. And I said, I can't wait to have a family of my own, and I'll show him exactly how a father should be, right? And I came up that way. I remember we were like some really, really sharp guys, right? We were high achieving guys, right, in my family, because my mom was really a real strong person, the best person I know, right? My mom was a good church lady and took us to church, and she was the head of the PTA and all this stuff, and we got real good grades. See, one of the things I never said to anybody is I really love school, right? I actually really love school. You guys knew me in school. I was a teacher's pet. I was an A student. I was following in the footsteps mainly of my two brothers right above me, Ralph and Ronald, right? They were always like the top person in their class. And so I would come into my class and they already had Ralph and Ronald, and I'm following in their footsteps. And I'm a top person in my, and man, I love school. I was, I when I was in school, I would always get praised for the grades. I would be able to be funny. I was good in sports. Always had a girlfriend. Elementary school, junior high, and high school, a really good looking girlfriend, and that was really, really the genesis of my problem. That was where my problem started. See, I lived on third base. Some of you guys, especially if you're over the pond, you may not know what third base is, right? I kind of like to say it a little, maybe it's a little crass, king of the blue balls, right? So I'm a guy who'd be there, and I just was scared to try to score. And if you ladies had been just a little more forthcoming, Jazz, if you guys had just given me a little bit more, you probably have a different speaker here today. But see, I went away to college thinking I was the world's last virgin because all these guys in here, especially people like Steve Lamb, were lying to me. Half of them, I didn't know half of them were lying, but they were all saying they were getting down with all these different women, and I thought I was the only one that wasn't getting any, because I believed all the guys too. And so I went away to college like that, and I was still a great student. I was still painfully shy and stuff like that. But then my roommates, I finally admitted my affliction to some of my roommates, and they told me the secret. They said, Reggie, next time you have a girl in your room, here's what you do. You bring a bottle of alcohol, bring the best that your money can buy, a bottle of alcohol. And they say, as the liquor goes down her throat, her legs will open, you'll get exactly what you want. Their words, not mine. Don't be upset with me. And I believed them. And so the very next weekend, I was in my dorm. I had this girl in my room, right? Wasn't my girlfriend, but her boyfriend was gone home for the weekend, so it was cool. And I had this bottle of alcohol, a bottle of wine, the best wine that my money could buy. It was called Spinata. So I got this bottle of Spinata, and I got this girl, and we're looking at this bottle, and we're so nervous we don't know what to do. And finally, we poured it, and she drank it, and it worked exactly like they said it would, right? And I became a man that night. I don't know if she became a woman. She was like, "You done already?" But anyway, that was a whole nother thing. That was then, not now. But the problem was that I drank some too. And when I drank something happened to me. All of a sudden, I wasn't shy anymore. My mouth started going. All of a sudden, I thought I could dance. All of a sudden, I got real close to cool. See, when I went away to school, I thought I wanted to be a millionaire by the time I was 30. I thought wanted to be a lawyer like me and my brothers, right? We were going to have a law firm, White, and White Incorporated, help disadvantaged people. I had those hopes and goals and dreams. After I started drinking, man, all of a sudden I changed. See, always been a square cat who loved to read, and I loved school, and now all of a sudden I was a cat who loved to get high. Because see, I couldn't handle my liquor. Let me tell you that at first. I immediately started blacking out. I immediately started throwing up. I hated the taste of alcohol. So I always drank, I would drink as fast and hard as I possibly could because I wanted to get blitzed. I never drank for buzz. I never wanted to control my drinking. I always wanted to be out of control. And so since I found out I couldn't handle my liquor I'm a good scientist. So what I did, I had to start mixing it with other things. I started mixing in some non-addictive marijuana. I mixed in some PCP in the form of angel dust. I mixed in Quaaludes and Valium. I mixed in hash and hash oil. I mixed in mushrooms, and I mixed in LSD. I was in college. It was the 70s. We were having fun. It was free love. We were partying. Life was good. I always drank and used with my brothers. They were my best friends, but I also had my own crew there, and we would mix together with our different crews. And man, life was one big party. We go to the cool jazz festivals and all. And I went through school like that. And I came out of school still a really top student. I came out still on the track team and playing baseball. I came out and started making real good money at real good jobs, right? And life was good until it started changing. I started adding in some things that were not just drinking alcohol and weed, and my life started to get a little bit harder. I started losing some things. I started losing license, insurance, and registration. I started to lose jobs. I started to lose bank accounts. I started to lose girlfriends, and that's what concerned me. And then eventually, I had a real big thing where I lost my girl, my job, and my home all in the same day. And I said, I need to regroup. So how do you regroup if you're a really high achieving guy like me? I moved back in my mom's house in 1984. And by 1985, all five of my brothers had moved back in my mom's house, and we were all drinking and using in my mom's house. And she had a nervous breakdown and almost died. By 1986, two of my brothers disappeared. I had no idea where they went. First, my brother Ronald disappeared. Didn't know where he went, didn't care. I was busy. Then my brother Ralph disappeared. Didn't know where he went, didn't care. I was busy. And in December of 1986, I was standing on the corner of Hollywood and Pine waiting for a bus to go get this girl's car because I had drank my car away. And this stranger walked up on me. This guy walked up on me and he said, let's do lunch. And I looked at him, and it was my brother Ronald. He looked so good, I didn't recognize him. His eyes were clear. His hair was cut. His skin was cleared out. He smelled good. His clothes were sharp. And then we went and we had lunch, and he broke out a huge wad of 20s to pay for the bill. And I had to ask him. I looked at him. I said, dude, you look really good. What have you been doing? He said, I went to this place called the Salvation Army Harbor Light Center. He said, it's down on Skid Row. He said, I no longer drink and I no longer use. And if you ever want to stop doing what you're doing, I can get you in there too. I looked at my brother and I thought to myself, man, you were scandalous out there. You need that place. And I said, can you loan me $40? He said, no. I said, you son of a, and I kept it pushing. But the seed had been planted. So a couple of months later, February 7th of 1987, I had left work. I was in this girl's car. Me and this girl left work. She gave me her car. I went to LA to buy some things and go back to her house, and I never made it back. I was in her car for 2 weeks. I was in the same suit that I had left work in. I stank. I had not shaved, showered, brushed my teeth, combed my hair. I hadn't done anything other than live in that girl's car for 2 weeks, and I owed a whole bunch of dangerous guys down in South Central LA. Car was out of gas, so I thought to myself, at least maybe try to get this car back to this girl, because I had left two of my other brothers at her house, right? And I tried to reach my brother Ronald, couldn't find him. I reached my brother Ralph, and he said that he would take the car back to her, but he had a condition to it. He said I'd have to go into this Harbor Light place. Well, that was on a Friday. I said, okay, I'll go in there on Monday. I have to get my affairs in order. He pointed out that I didn't have any affairs. So on Friday, February 7th, 1987, I walked into the Salvation Army Harbor Light Center more dead than alive. I don't know how that guy managed, took my intake. I stank so much. I was in that same suit I had been in for 2 weeks. He took that suit away from me and threw it away. They let me shower. They gave me fresh clothes, and they told me to go upstairs and sleep for a week. They called it detoxing. I went upstairs and I detoxed for a week, and they sent me down to this thing that they called an AA meeting. I walked into that AA meeting and I sat in the front row because I was what they called new. He told me to sit in. I didn't know what new meant, but they said you got to sit in the front row. There was a guy standing there at the podium, tall white dude with glasses. He had a suit on, suit and tie. He looked lame. He looked a lot like I look right now. He's pounding on this podium and he's saying, if you want what I have, you will get this Bible that's up on this podium. You will get a sponsor and your life can change. I looked at that dude. I thought to myself, man, you look lame. I don't want nothing you got. But then I had a real quick second thought. I thought to myself, wait a minute. This dude probably not, I know he's not spending the night at the Harbor Light Center like I am. And he probably has a car because he's not walking down Skid Row this time of night. He may have a home that he's going to, and he probably has a job to pay for that home. He may even have a couple of women up in there, and I thought maybe I want a little bit of what this guy has got. So I asked him to be my sponsor. He bought me that Bible. He handed it to me. He said, read it from the beginning and your life can change. And I looked at that Bible and it said Alcoholics Anonymous on the front of it. And I'm thinking, what kind of Bible is this? And I opened it up and it said, there is a solution. And I got my first message of hope. But I'm a sharp guy. I'm a real sharp guy. Don't forget that. So I said, I'm gonna go upstairs and I'm gonna read this entire book tonight. I'm gonna speed read it because they had said only 2 of you guys are gonna get this. And I didn't know what it was, get whatever this it was, but I said, I'm gonna be one of the 2 guys. So I went upstairs, I opened that book up and I started reading and I got to the doctor's opinion. And I got to the part where it said the only hope for the chronic alcoholic is total abstinence. And you lost me right there. Because what kind of bait and switch is this? What part of the game is this? They're talking about, I know you can't slide words by me like abstinence or total abstinence. I know what that means. And who would do something like that? Who would want to stop everything? And I would have walked out of that rehab right there on the spot, but I had nowhere to go. So I stayed there. 30 days later, I got a weekend pass. Me and my 2 friends went down my 2 biggest friends went down to 9604 South Figueroa on a Saturday afternoon to go to the noon meeting. We walked there and we opened up the door to that meeting and we got hit with a wall of laughter. People laughing out loud. It was packed in there that day. We opened the door and looked and it was a bunch of old timers right by the door, hugging and shaking hands. And I'm like, okay. And then there was a bunch of guys, cool looking guys, but they're hugging and shaking hands. I didn't like that hugging part too much. I'm like, okay, but they look cool. They look all right. And then on the far end of the room was a bunch of really good looking women. And I'm like, okay, maybe we could do this. So we went in, we went to the very back of the room where there was the only place there was any seats open. And we sat there. And later on, I found out they called it death row. So we're sitting there on death row. And I look to my left, and there's the coffee pot. And man, that coffee pot, the big silver coffee pot, and it looked like it was gleaming, like it was glowing, right? And then and I really wanted some of that coffee. Next to it was a plate piled high with cookies. Not that cheap 99-cent store stuff. It looked like Oreos, like good stuff. And man, I wanted some of those cookies, right? But here's the problem. It was a bunch of people standing there laughing and joking by the coffee pot. And there was a guy standing behind the counter. See, and I'm terrified because I don't want to get embarrassed. What if I walk over there and pour a cup of coffee and they ask me for a quarter? See, I don't have it. Or what if I go over there and pick up a cookie? They ask me for a nickel. See, I don't have that either. See, the condition I came to you guys in, I had nothing but that dirty, nasty, filthy soup that they took away from me and threw it away. And I don't know how this old timer read my mind. I don't know how she figured out I was even new. But she walked all the way through that crowded room to the back, and it was so loud. And I guess she didn't want to embarrass me, so she leaned next to my ear and she whispered. She said, "Baby, go over there and get you some of that coffee. Go over there and get you some of those cookies. Take all you want. It's free." Then she smiled and winked at me. And I fell in love with you guys because of the kindness of strangers. See, I didn't know what they were saying at the podium that day, that mental obsession, physical allergy, all that stuff. But I knew kindness when I felt it. And then they asked for newcomers and they jumped up and you say, "Oh, you're the most important people in the room." Then then we got up and went and got 30-day chips. And you guys were applauding for us. And then after the meeting, everybody came to me and they were telling me to keep coming back. And they remembered my name. Man, you couldn't. I fell in love with AA that day. And I started doing everything you guys asked me to do. I started cleaning ashtrays and setting up meetings. I started volunteering for everything. Eventually, I started going on panels to prisons, and I was taking panels down on Skid Row, where I used to be in rehab. I came to you in February of 1987. In November of 1987, my two brothers, Ralph and Ronald, along with our good friend Strange, came up with the idea for the Never Too Early Big Book Workshop. There was 13 of us around my mom's dining room table with our big books open, reading them early that morning. And my mom got up to go to church, and she almost cried. She was so happy that you had brought 3 of her sons back to her. Then, December of 1987, and that was the same woman we had almost killed 2 years before. Then, December of 1987, my baby brother came to the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. On Christmas Day, my brother Rod came. So now it's 4 of us in the fellowship. And right now I have 3 brothers in this fellowship with 37 and 38 years of sobriety. 1987 was a great year in the White household. Then we started working the steps exactly as outlined in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And my life took off. It got immediately really good. Really, really good. I came to you on a real high bottom. I had a real good work history. So I started working and making money really fast. So I'm making money. And we're going to AA picnics and AA parties and dances, and we're having a great time in Alcoholics Anonymous. And then I immediately got a girlfriend. That girlfriend and I moved in together after 2 weeks. And now, and she had a son, so I got a ready-made family. Now got a ready-made family in AA, and I'm a better dad than my dad has ever been. And how could life get any better? And it did. The richest man in California handpicked me to go. The guy named Eli Grove handpicked me to bring his company back from Atlanta. Now I have a home in Atlanta. I got a home in West Hollywood where I moved my family, and I'm making 6 figures. I got 6 departments, 250 employees. They're working 24-hour-a-day shifts. And how could life get better than that? Well, my girlfriend got pregnant. A miracle. Why is that a miracle? I had barebacked it all my life, never used protection. I didn't think I could have a baby. Now I got my own child, Angela Marie White. The best thing I've been from that day to this is a father here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And don't let the life that AA gave you get in the way of your AA life. Don't let the life that AA gave you get in the way of your AA life. Well, Bill puts it differently. He says if an alcoholic fails to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through self-sacrifice and working with others, he won't be able to survive the certain trials, low spots ahead. And if he can't, he'll drink. And if he drinks, he'll die. And all hope will be lost. And what did that look like in my life? Well, I'd stopped going to meetings because I didn't like the meetings in Atlanta, and I'm only flying back and forth. When I come to LA, I might go glad hand to the meeting with some guys. I have a sponsor in LA that I'm not calling. I hadn't called him. I stopped calling him. Hadn't called him in years. I got a sponsor in name only. I'm no longer going to Never Too Early Big Book Workshop, so I'm not working the steps anymore. I'm not going on panels to prisons anymore, and I'm not taking panels down on Skid Row. I stopped doing all the things at Alcoholics Anonymous that got me all the things that Alcoholics Anonymous got me. Don't let the life that AA gave you get in the way of your AA life. Then the trials came that Bill talked about. My daughter got sick. We thought we saw a seizure. My wife took her to Children's Hospital. Doctor there gave her medication was not supposed to be given to a child at age. It started eating her kidneys away and eating her alive from the inside. You can't stop that medication. You have to switch it to another, and they wouldn't switch. We're back and forth to the hospital for 4 long months, begging them to switch the medication, and they wouldn't do it. All my daughter could do was tell me, Daddy, tummy hurts. And she'd hug me and look at me like I could stop the pain, and I couldn't. And I felt helpless. I said, enough of that. Took her to Cedar Sinai Hospital, the best hospital in LA. They took one look at her and they intubated her. They put her in an induced coma for 3.5 weeks. All of AA gathered around, all the church people with my mom, all of my family and all of our friends. You guys did not leave us alone for 1 single minute. You guys were with us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week throughout that 3.5 week period. I started praying again. I started praying, God, please take my life, save my baby. And I thought those prayers were answered. And they came out, the doctors came out and they said, we figured out what's wrong with your daughter. And they said, we just have to do exploratory surgery. I told them, do it. And they opened her up. And they opened her up. They killed her. When they killed her, it felt like God. And I totally shut down. I never went back. I never went back to that dream job one day after that. I never even called them. Somehow they made it to the funeral. I don't know how. Somehow they kept paying me. I don't know why. And I totally shut down. What I used to say is I relapsed because my daughter died. That's not true. We know what to do in Alcoholics Anonymous when we have tragedies. What we do is we get at the podium and talk, drag us off of it. What we do is we go to more meetings. What we do is we call our sponsor or we call newcomers. What we do is we go mop floors and we go and clean ashtrays. What we do is we sit in the middle of the herd so you guys can love us back to life. We lean into the fellowship, and I couldn't do that. Neither could my wife. I totally shut down. I totally leaned out. I totally leaned, and angry all the time. All I could do is F you, God. I just, God, why would my daughter have to be tortured for 4 months before she died? Somehow the torture part was worse. And I wrapped that anger around me like a warm blanket on a cold day, and I lasted 11 months like that. And then I went to a bar and I drank. And when I went to that bar and I drank, it came rushing back at me how bad of an alcoholic I was. I had done so many other outside issues. I'd forgotten how much of an alcoholic I was until I went to a bar and I drank. And I drank for 2 weeks, and all the throwing up, blacking out, bad behavior. And I only drank for those 2 weeks. And then she, the bar, you know her, short skirt, long legs, low cut dress, gorgeous face. And she gave me that look, tilted her head, gave me that look. And I tilted my head right back and gave her my forward interview. Always did. Do you get high? And she said yes. And I was off and running what I really wanted and what I really knew I couldn't do. And only did that for 2 weeks. Then it was the anniversary of my daughter's death. And I wanted to see God. I needed to see God and talk to God. I needed to find out, did he need more help down here? Did he need more angels? Why would he let us do this together? And I wanted to be back with my baby. It was the last place I had had. I took a bunch of pills and I committed suicide. I was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital, and God wouldn't let me die. He pulled me back. And the second worst day of my life is when I came to. And instead of looking into the face of God, I was looking in the face of my mom and then my brother and my ex-wife and all the people that love me. And I'm ashamed and I'm humiliated in addition to being angry at God. Angry. I'm angry at you guys. I'm angry at God. I'm angry at me. And was I to know what the next 16 years were going to be like, I'd have tried to commit suicide all over again. I spent the first 5 or 6 years of that not holding my family together, and that was like a big tragedy because my wife and I were in the fellowship together, and we couldn't hold together, and my stepson, see, and that like got me to this day because my son His dad had died. My stepson, his dad had died. And while my baby was alive, I remember I always told him, I'm not trying to take your dad's place, but I will always be your father. And he called me dad. And when my baby died, all of a sudden, I just sat down and I shut him out and I totally left. So all that talk I made about I'd always be his father, it was words only. And it took me, I was so ashamed of that. It took me until a year ago before I finally made that amends to him. And fortunately, I've been able to live long enough to make that amends to him and make things right. And he recently told me that everything he is a man and everything he's ever accomplished is due to the way I raised him. And so we were able to make that right. But at that time, I couldn't shut him out. And uh, after about 5 or 6 years, I tried to make it back to the fellowship. More specifically, I wanted to make it back to Never Too Early Big Book Work. That's why, if there's anybody new in here, that's why we get a home. We want to get back to where we know people love us and know people care about us unconditionally. And I wanted to get back to Never Too Early Big Book Workshop, but I was ashamed because, see, me and my brothers had all come in here together. Me and all three of my brothers came in, and now they got all these years, and I got absolutely nothing. I don't have sobriety. I don't have my baby. I got nothing. And I wanted to at least have my pride and integrity. I wanted to have a year before I walked in the Never Too Early. And so I wouldn't go back there. What I did instead, if you're Reggie White and want to keep your pride and integrity intact, I tried to sneak back to Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, how do you sneak back to Alcoholics Anonymous? Let me tell you. They're all down in South Central LA. I'm in West Hollywood. So now I go to meetings in West Hollywood where nobody knows me. I go to meetings late so I won't have to stand up as new because I'm too ashamed and humiliated. I leave meetings early so I won't have to take any chips because I'm too ashamed and humiliated. So now I'm at AA, but I'm not in AA and I'm not getting any of the benefits of the fellowship of AA. And I'm relapsing over and over and over again. And I start doing that recovery home dance. I start hitting all these recovery homes and I start relapsing. And that's when my mind starts doing, I do my mind act and I start, my friend Clancy, I remember when I first came around, I used to talk to him and he talked about how AA is the only friendly direction. He would talk about that. AA is the friendly direction. Well, when I start relapsing and I start becoming that serial relapser, all of a sudden AA doesn't it's not that friendly direction anymore. Now my mind starts running. My mind reading act starts doing, and I start thinking that people are looking at me saying, why can't he be like his brother? Why can't he get this thing? If he really wanted to stay sober, he'd be sober. Why doesn't he have any willpower? What's wrong with it? What are you going to do different this time? And if there's anybody new in here, if there's anybody who relapsed like I relapsed, I want you to know that none of that's true. All we want is you to come all the way in, sit all the way down and get this thing. All we want you to do is get exactly what we got, right? All we thinking about is how much we love you and that we do anything for you. All the rest of that stuff was in my mind. But I'm a sharp guy. And I thought to myself, after I kept trying and trying and trying to go to meetings, sneak back to AA, and it didn't work. I said, how did I get sober the first time? I took the steps. Okay. In a vision for you, it says, go you people, one man with this book in your hand. We believe and we hope it contains all you need to begin. Okay, I got a book. I've taken people through the steps. I'll take myself through the steps. I'll sponsor myself. So I got this big book. I'm going through steps 1 through 4. I do a great 4th step, find a stranger, do a 5th step. And now I skip the steps 12 and 13 and relapse over and over and over again. And I'm doing that recovery dance more and more and more. And I'm starting to have these incidents of pitiful and incomprehensible realization. Now I'm thinking I'm not hurting anybody other than me because, see, I'm a functional alcoholic. I was always able to keep a job. Thank God for telemarketing, Girls Gone Wild, all that other stuff. I'm doing, and I'm dying inside. And I'm dying, man. And I'm trying to do everything I can to get back to you guys without God. hate God. And I'm still pissed off at God. And everything in me, I know how to get sober though. That's what I would tell myself. And I remember some of the things that happened, like in 2000. I remember my mom, they put together a birthday party for my mom's 75th birthday. And I was one of those periods where I had come out of a rehab and I put together a few months sober and I put on some weight and my face was clear and I looked good, smelled good. I didn't have a car yet, but I made it down to my mom's house, so that we could all go to this birthday party. She had people coming from all over the country, and I had a gift for my mom, and I'm there, and my mom is so happy that all her sons are back with her again because I'm the missing piece, right? And everybody's so happy that the family's back together, and and I'm so happy. Nobody's happier than me. And I wanted this morning, I want to breathe air. And my mom is so proud of me. She said, "We got your aunt is coming in at the airport from Memphis." And so she gave me her car keys and said, "Don't pick your aunt up at the airport." And I'm so happy. Those were the days you could go sit at the arrival gate. I said, "I'm gonna be sitting there waiting for her when she gets out." So I left early to go to the airport. I was gonna make that left turn to go to the airport, and then all of a sudden it just hit me. I could make a right turn and go by this girl's house, spend $20, and I could still make it to the airport in plenty of time. Well, it took them 3 weeks to get that car back when they finally found that car, and thank God they had keys to it. And it took me almost a year before I could show my face to anybody in the family again, because now I knew that every single person in my family knew who I was, and I'm ashamed and I'm humiliated, and I'm living that pitiful and comprehensive moralization, and I'm starting to give up myself. I know that everybody else is giving up, and God, but I'm still saying I'm not hurting anybody other than myself, despite all the evidence to the contrary. Then in 2009, God said, "I need to slow you down, Reggie, because I'm still working all the time." And God gave me glaucoma. Now I have 0% vision in my right eye. I got 30% vision in my left eye. And so now, I learn what it's like to be a low bottom truck, because now I can no longer drive a car. Now I can no longer work for anybody else. So now I'm making $200 a month on public assistance from the county, and I'm getting $200 worth of food stamps, and I'm supplementing it with going to sell plasma twice a week. And I become that low bottom guy walking the street aimlessly all hours of the night. No hopes, no goals, no dreams. And now everybody gives. Um, my mother is only as happy as I am. And my mom didn't want to see me son out there homeless. So she let me rent a room. So now I'm living in my mom's. I'm basically homeless, but I'm living in my mom's house. And I'm paying her rent in her house. And she wouldn't look at me or talk to me. Ralph, Ronnie, and my other brother, Rod. "Hey, Ralph, Ronnie, Rod." And then she see me walk by me, shake her head, and I'm humiliated every time that happens. I act like it doesn't bother me, but it's just eating me away. And I remember finally, in 2017, I'm sitting behind my mom's garage. I have a bottle of Cisco in one hand and I have some paraphernalia in the other. And I remember sitting there that day. And I thought to myself, I can't do this. Not that I can no longer drink and use, but I thought to myself, I give up on trying to be sober. I said that God won't let me die and God won't let me get sober. Fuck God, and I'm going to do this anymore. And so what I said, I surrendered to the fact that I couldn't do it, that I couldn't help myself, that I couldn't get myself sober. And looking back in the rearview mirror, that was the surrender I needed to do. I needed to surrender to the fact that I couldn't get myself sober. And um, about a week later, my so-called girlfriend stole my mother's car out of the driveway. And my baby brother pushed the door to that room open. I was renting at my mom's house that morning. And he said, "Where's mom's car?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You have to get out of my mother's house right now." I sat up and looked behind him, and my mother was standing there looking terrified of me. And I love her more than anything in the world. And it felt like a piece of my soul left. But I made one right decision that day. I made the decision to to go back to that same rehab I'd been to twice in a 5-year period. And I called my sponsor, Rico Cruz. I called Rico, and Rico said, I've been waiting for this call. And 2 days later, I was walking the grounds of that rehab with my head down because I hadn't looked any of you in the eye in years. I've been so humiliated and just so humiliated. And Rico walked up on me and he said, pick your head up. He said, you don't have a right to walk with your head down anymore. You're a child of God. He said, God didn't put you everything he put you through for 16 years to leave you out here like this. God has work for you to do. And before I could stop myself, the words slid out of my mouth. I said, please take it. God reached down and something changed that day, that moment. All I'd ever cared about before is what you guys thought of me. All I worried about is what people were thinking of me. And all of a sudden that left. And all I cared about was helping those people in that rehab. I had that gift of desperation, 3 steps again. And thank God that God doesn't need my permission to work in my life because I'm still cursing God on a daily basis right then that I had no belief God could do anything for me. And then I walked out of that rehab. When I walked out of that rehab, I walked out of the rehab at 90 days. I walked back in the never too early big book workshop because I didn't care anymore about what people thought of me. And I didn't need a year to walk back in there. And when I walked back in there, we were about to do the 3rd step prayer. We were on the 3rd step. God still pouring grace on me, still pouring grace. And I remember that first day I walked back in there and nobody knew I was coming out that soon. I thought I'd been in there forever, and people were like, "Oh," and they were like, and I walked back in there. One of my brothers asked this guy to take me to this guy Angel, and he asked me to go to a meeting that night. They said they know I'm legally blind now, right? I can't drive. They said Reggie can't drive, and so maybe you could take me to a meeting at night. And Angel asked me to go to a meeting that night, and I said, yeah. I went to that meeting that night. And after we went to that meeting, he said, you want to go to one tomorrow night? And I said, yeah, and yeah, and yeah, again. And 2 years later, right before the pandemic, Angel said to me, he said, do you know, because I didn't know anybody. He said, do you know that your brother asked me to take you to one meeting that one night? And he said, I kept asking you to go because I kept thinking you would say no. And he took me to a meeting every single night for 2 straight years. I don't know if I'd be sitting here right now. Might have a different speaker if that man hadn't taken me. That's why we do things for each other like that in AA. But see, what I didn't know is this. Angel said I had stopped going to meetings. He said, I don't even know why I went into Never Too Early that day. He said, I'd stopped going to meetings and I had been sitting at bars for almost 2 years. And he said that me, you, and our friend Crazy Larry, we started going to these meetings. He said, I started liking AA. He said, I started liking AA. And with him saving me, God's. And anyway, then we were doing the 3rd step prayer. It was 350, about 300 of us on our knees doing that 3rd step prayer together, me to a God that I had no belief. I had no belief that God. I was cursing him on a daily basis. I believe that you guys believe. And then we came out of that, got to the 4th step. And when we got on that 4th step, my brother Ralph has a saying, we always talk about that. The worst thing an alcoholic can have is totally justified anger. You've been raped as a child, molested as an adult. Your daughter, 4 years old, been tortured and killed and ripped out of your life. She did nothing to anybody, and neither did I. And what we say is, do you want to be right or do you want to be free? Do you want to be right or do you want to be free? And I put God on the 4th step this time and I chose food. And when I put God on the four-step thing, started to look different. I realized I wasn't the one that gave my little girl that medication. That was the doctors at Children's Hospital. I realized that God wasn't the one that made the decision for my daughter to die. That was the doctors at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. Okay, wait a minute. I prayed, God, take my life, save my daughter. Well, when did God start working for me? He worked. Okay, there was one big thing. What kind of God let that little girl be tortured for the last 4 months of her life and be ripped out of my life like that and only let me have her for 4.5 years? Well, when I look at the world different, the world looks back differently. And the way I prefer to look at it is this, that God healed Angela Marie White before he put her on this earth. And he said, you're going to be tortured for 4 long months and you're going to die a horrible death. So what I'm going to do for you little girls, I'm going to give you to a man that's going to love you every single day of your life. I'm going to give you to the best father in the world. He gave her to me, my miracle baby that I didn't think I could have. And the way I prefer to look at it is this. Not that God only let me have Angie for 4.5 years, but that he allowed me to be a father for 4.5 years, the best 4.5 years of my life. And then my mom. My mom suffered so long and hard at the hands of me and my brothers, but especially at me. And my mom just wouldn't give up on me. And if there are any new friends in here, what we are is a tornado in the lives of the people that we love. And I remember that 75th birthday when I humiliated my mom by taking her car and not showing back up. Thank God I'd taken the time out to make amends to that aunt that I left at that airport. Because, see, my mom at 2 years sober, when I was 2 years back with you guys, my mom came and never really did good work up and gave me a cake for my 2 years. Then we went on a cruise, and it was like all of my brothers and my mom and 75 AA people, right? And my mom went around to everybody on that cruise asking them, are you sure that Reggie is back? Because my mom was the last one to give up on me, but she was the last one to believe I was all the way back. We're just a tornado in the lives of people that love us, and she just couldn't get her hopes like that again. She couldn't believe I was back. And I walked out of her house when she finally let me go back on her property. I walk out of her house to take trash out to the back, and she'd stick her head out the door. She think I was sneaking back behind the garage or something. And finally, that aunt that I made amends, my mom's sister, she told my mom that he's back. That my mom, thank God I made it. And so on my AA birthday, my mom wrote in my birthday card, you're the center of my universe. Doesn't happen for guys like me. Every single person, every single person gave up on me to believe I could make it back. Especially me. I gave. I'm here to tell you, if any of you here have family members, you have a brother, you have a mom, you have a sister, you have a son that's out there, I need you to understand with his miracle. I don't know what's going to happen with your life in your life, but you may be the only big book that person can read. I remember my brother, the best thing they ever did when I went around them, all they did is talk like a human being. When I'm out there, people weren't talking like a human being anymore. Thank God that God has allowed me an opportunity to pay back just a little bit of what's been so freely. After that man took me for 2 years to all those meetings. We went to meetings every single night, and then the pandemic came. I got worried. We went for 2 weeks. Never too early, not going. And I wasn't going. I hadn't been to a meeting in 2 weeks, and I was scared because a guy like me, I'm a serial relapser. I can't afford to go 2 weeks with no meeting, and I didn't know what we were gonna do. And then all of a sudden, I remember Chris called Ralph, and I was over at the house. Ralph took that call, and they start talking, and they talked. Chris said she had this thing called, and Ralph and her decided. Ralph, they came up with the idea early on, and I started thinking, what can I do? I have to have a commitment. I have to have service. And what I decided, I said, how are people going to know where the meetings are? And I started sending out Zoom links to people there. Starting off with sending people a notice that Never Too Early was going. And I made that commitment. And from the start of the pandemic till now, every single day, I've been sending out Zoom meetings to probably 800 or 900 people all over the world. And thank God for God, man, because I think that when we get lemons, God turn it into lemonade. The worst thing that happened in my life was my baby dying, and the best thing that I can bring to the table is the experiences that I've had in making it back to you guys. The worst thing that happened, I thought, for AA was all of a sudden we couldn't have meetings because of the pandemic, and God gave us Zoom, and now we spread out all over the world, and we all get to talk to each other and see each other all over the world. Finally, no, I'm rambling a little bit, but finally, I always said I wasn't hurting anybody other than myself. That was my mantra, that I wasn't hurting anybody other than myself. That was my theme. And my mom told me after a couple of years back, she said, you owe your niece an amends. I'm like, I owe her an amends. I said, what did I do now? And she said, well, when that car got stolen out of the driveway, your niece had to pay $480 to get it out of impound. I'm like, Mom, that was 2 years ago. Why'd you wait so long? And I called my niece, and my niece, I said, to make amends to you, I owe you this $480. And my niece said, Uncle, I don't need the money. I'm just so happy you're back. I don't want any money from you. If I don't pay you this money today, I might be drunk tomorrow. So she hurried with the money. But I asked her that question that we asked. I said, is there any other way that I've harmed you? And my niece said, yeah. She surprised me. She said, yeah, Uncle. And I said, how did I harm you? And she said, Uncle, when we were little kids together, she grew up with my daughter Angie. She said, you used to take all of us every holiday, every Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's at Grant's house. You would set us down on your lap and spread us out on the couch. What you would do is you would tell us these stories. You tell us all these tales about when you had all these adventures when you were our age. You would fly around with Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and Tooth Fairy and have these adventures all over the world. And you would make us laugh and laugh and laugh. And that was my favorite part of every holiday. I said, Uncle, I wanted you to tell those stories to my kids. I wanted you to tell those stories to all the grandkids. He said, Uncle, you were gone for 16 years, and I thought I'd lose you forever. He said, you would be in this room in Grand's house. And I could look at that door and reach out and touch that door. She said, and I would pray that you would come out of that room so I could hug you and tell you I love you. I would pray that you would just walk out today and hug me like you always did. Thanks to you here in Alcoholics Anonymous, my niece has her uncle. And thanks to you here in Alcoholics Anonymous, my mom has her son back and my brothers have their. Thanks to you here in Alcoholics Anonymous, I have an opportunity, one day at a time, to repay just a little bit of what's been so freely given. Lynn, I want to thank you so much for inviting me out. My name's Reggie White. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you for allowing me